Yes, indeed. Another beautiful day here in Abuja with a temperature of 26 degrees, looking bright and early. And you see everybody about their business. What you're looking at is around the Inyanya area of the Federal Capital Territory. Good morning and welcome to Sunrise Daily. Neota Igwe.
And here in Lagos, my name is Ayo Makinde, and what you're looking at right now is the Lagos-Ibadan Expressway in Lagos, initiated several years ago between 1974 and 1977. 74 was when it was conceived, and Lagos-Badagry Expressway, beg your pardon, and this is what we have right now. It is being proposed by the government to be up to 10 lanes, incorporating rail transportation as well, but this is just one section of the Lagos-Badagry Expressway, and work is most certainly ongoing. It's an international route, and it's part of what they call a Trans-West African regional route. Good morning, welcome to Sunrise Daily. I'm Ayo Makinde, and this is Lagos.
This is Lagos indeed, and expanding that road to a transnational route connecting Nigeria and other African countries, especially the West African regions. A fantastic project that, when it's done, it will make things a lot easier and ease business and transportation across the West African sub-region. But amongst the things that are happening today was start up at the Supreme Court. Yes, we mentioned this earlier, about 2 days ago. I think it was a Monday, that matter of the governorship tussle in Adamawa State. The APC is going to get its judgment today. The Supreme Court will be ruling on that matter of the governorship seat. Remember, Aisha Benani asking the court to declare her the winner of that election. The Supreme Court will be deciding today on which way the pendulum will swing. I will keep you updated. And now next, that'll be happening today, is also the EFCC, that's the Economic and Financial Crimes Commission, having an anti-corruption dialogue. Who and who are going to be there? What would they be saying? At the end of the day, is it just about talk? Well, new helmsman at the EFCC, I understand a couple of things are changing. See a lot more action, less of media trials, and the courts will be buzzing with a lot of activity from the EFCC. Well, again, we'll keep you updated on how all of these things are going to turn out. Ayo?
What also happening today is a briefing of the National Bureau of Statistics on the cost of a healthy diet. For those who have been talking about out-of-pocket expenses for food, liquid cash, not able to do what is expected of it, all of that is coming on today, and as Neota has said repeatedly, we will keep you updated on that. And of course, you know that that's a business issue that several people will be much interested in. Of course, also later on this morning on the program, Business Morning on Sunrise Daily, we'll be talking about crude supply and allied matters, all things money, all things business. That's also happening right here on Sunrise Daily this morning.
Exciting times we're going to have here, exciting day as well. But just before we do that, let's see what some of the dailies are saying and reporting in a moment. I'm starting out with the Vanguard newspaper. See that story spread across the front page. Huge. Worsening insecurity. Kidnappers abduct pupils. Teachers demand 30 million naira. Plenty of writers there. It's not a pleasant story, but this matter of insecurity and kidnapping needs to be nipped in the bud. And a couple of people are speaking there. Oyebanji, Senate President, and the governor of Oyo State. Even the president has also spoken as well. The Speaker of the House of Representatives also said a couple of things where you see those writers. You go to page 5 to see more details, and then you see that other story. 4.6 billion naira, Office of the National Security Advisor, ONSA, fund shared to organize prayers against insecurity. That's coming from an EFCC witness. There's another story on the front page there, following the other big one. You get more details of that on page 6. That's it from the Vanguard.
The Nigerian Tribune this morning is also trailing that same story. Outrage over killing of Ekiti monarchs, kidnap of pupils. And guess what? Abductors demand 10 million naira each for victims. Tinubu, Olubadan, Southwest speakers, Fayemi Igboho, Gani Adams, others react. Reps call for rescue of abducted students, teachers, as spokesperson weeps over killing of traditional rulers. Senate summons security chiefs again. Find the details on pages 11 and 29 of the Nigerian Tribune. That's the lead story of the Nigerian Tribune this morning.
And we'll go on to this Nigeria. And they're talking about 20 years after, they're leading with that story, 20 years after this Nigeria, Daily Trust rather, Daily Trust. Oh, sit there. 20 years after, 26 states failed to implement new pension scheme. That's what Daily Trust is leading with. FG, private sector employees benefiting. Experts urge governors to enroll workers. Pension fund assets hit 17 trillion naira. That's what they're leading with. And the details you'll find on page 4. And that's it from Daily Trust.
Of this Nigeria, which was initially put on your screen, 30,000 small arms, light weapons, ammunition recovered in 23 years. Remember that story? Anyway, we'll talk about that later, perhaps, because the former head of state, Abdulsalami Abubakar, had also said something similar some years, not too long ago, maybe about 2 or 3 years ago. Look at the riders. Proliferation of firearms, major catalyst for insecurity, says coordinator of Weapon Control Center. Adopt new strategy, reps task president. Senate summons security chiefs to appear next week. That story is the lead of this Nigeria, and you'll find the details of it on page 4.
The Guardian newspaper is next. 7 states on Niger borderline. Bandits, smugglers reign as sanctions hardship ground communities. That's coming from The Guardian. See the graphic representation there on the front page of The Guardian. Picture of Niger's president and the head of state in Niger, just beside the map. Details you'll find on page 6. And one other story here, Nigeria ranks 145 on the Graft Index, scores 25 out of 100 points. You find that on page 3.
And look at the front
from
page.
The Guardian.
Yes, look at the front page of the Nigerian Observer today. Edo grows IGR by 17 billion naira as Obaseki reforms bear fruits. That's the lead story of the Nigerian Observer this morning. Look at the riders. Formal sector leads as figures reflect over 40% growth from 2022. EIRS boss links revenue growth to governor's investment drive and others. That story is on the front page and it continues on the inside pages of the Nigerian Observer today.
New Telegraph is the next one, and they have a different story, but tied to that security matter. Abbas, insecurity threatening Nigeria's peace stability, is on page 2, 3, and 5. Reps to convene National Security Summit as Senate meets service chiefs next week. And then below that, price of 12.5 kg of gas rose by 1,000 naira within the month. That's according to an investigation. And you get details of that on page 4. Then this quick one, airlines claim $700 million deal with banks as CBN clears $64.4 million verified backlog. That's it from the New Telegraph.
The late story of the Daily Independent newspaper is talking about that same trapped funds of the airlines this morning. Foreign airlines fault CBN, says $650 million trapped funds unpaid. Meanwhile, of course, the CBN said verified claims have been cleared. So, hey, get more details of that story on the front page, and it continues on the inside pages of the Daily Independent newspaper this morning.
Well, let's see what the business day is leading with as Naira continues free fall. CBN offers promises. Someone will say, is it promises that we're going to eat? Experts prefer ways to tackle forex backlog. Naira sinks to 1,482.57 to the dollar on official market. That's business day. And that's it there for business day.
Blueprint newspaper is leading with this story. Be tough on decisions over insecurity, Abbas tells Tinubu. Senate summons service chiefs again, meets president next week. Troops rescue 20 kidnapped victims, kill 2 bandits in Zamfara. Reps probe plateau killings, seek civilian JTF. That story continues on page 6 of Blueprint newspaper this morning. Nyota.
The Blueprint, that's the one I took there. Nigerian Tribune, outrage over killing of Ekiti monarchs, kidnap of pupils. That story continues on page 11 and page 29. Abductors demand 10 million naira each for victims.
Okay, well, look at the
forex backlog. CBN pays additional $64.4 million. Again, that's another story on the front page of the Nigerian Tribune. And Labour proposes $300 living wage for Nigerian workers. We'll get more details on that, but that's it from the Nigerian Tribune.
News Direct this morning. Kidnapping, killings increase. Call for state policing heightens. That story is on page 2. Tinubu Oyebanji condemn killings, order rescue of kidnapped victims. Atiku calls for stronger leadership, mocks Tinubu as tourist in chief. A Senate summons security chiefs. That story is on page 2 of the Nigerian News Direct this morning. This month, that one.
Go back to the Vanguard, that story there, worsening insecurity. Kidnappers abduct pupils, teachers demand 30 million naira. Some other papers are reporting 100 million naira. But the police arrest 5 kidnapped suspects. Tinubu orders immediate rescue of students, monarchs, killers arrested. Nothing will be spared to rescue pupils, teachers, Oyebanji. We must ensure Nigerians sleep with 2 eyes closed. That's coming from Akpabio. We're deeply troubled. Speaker Abbas cries to Tinubu. Reps to convene security summit, task Tinubu on security architecture. State police will tackle insecurity challenges. Coming from Makinde, governor of Oyo State. This story on security is reported in many of the dailies, and it's a matter that needs to be looked at real critically and real quickly. Something decisive needs to be done. Enough of the, some will say, enough of the dialogue back and forth or conversations or talk shops. Action needs to be taken. There are some who believe that the location of these abductors, of these perpetrators, is known to the security agencies. And the question is, why are they not taking the kind of decisive action that will nip this in the bud or end it once and for all? That's a question many people continue to ask. I don't know if you have any answers.
Well, I don't have answers, just another poser, Nyota. Every action that I think the federal government has taken about this insecurity matter is pointing in one direction or the other. For instance, Nigerians went through hell trying to link their name to SIM over the years. And guess what we were told? It is with the intention to ensure that people are not able to call, the kidnappers are not able to call anyone, so that whenever they call, they will be able to track the call. One of the excuses that someone gave us recently is that now they don't use regular calls, they now use WhatsApp call. Well, really? Is that the excuse? Anyway, let me believe that that didn't come from the official quarters of our security apparatus. Number two is the fact that we continue to talk about the fact that the first line of defense has been broken. Honorable Rotimi was speaking on the floor of the House. It's on our website and on our Twitter and our X handle. And he was crying, talking about the fact that 2 monarchs were killed. Monarchs are part of the Security Council of any local governments. The chairman, the executive council of the local government system, the monarchs, prominent monarchs in the local government area, community development associations, these are the people that form the security apparatus of any local government environment. Local government council, they have their own security team, the security meeting. They are the ones that can say, this is a stranger, this is not a stranger in this particular community. For this kind of thing to happen, someone must know about it. I don't see how anyone will convince me that our intelligence community in Nigeria, security intelligence community in Nigeria, is so bereft of ideas that they don't know that this is going to happen. The question is, when the information came, what was done about it? That question needs to be asked all of the time. So when we're talking about things happening in Borno, happening in Plateau, happening in Kaduna, we keep hearing from prominent Nigerians, Nyota, that certain powerful Nigerians are behind some things, certain prominent Nigerians are behind some things. Come on, are they more powerful than Nigeria itself? Are they more powerful? Are they above the law? Are they beyond the law? Can they not do anything to arrest this situation? We keep hearing, we heard from I think it was the CDS, who was telling us that there is a role for security, military security, there is a role for politics in this whole conversation. Okay, let's say that the military is doing its own. What is the political solution that we're supposed to be getting that we're not getting? So those conversations, Nyota, need to be had. We need to face ourselves and tell ourselves the very, very ugly truth. Because at the end of the day, it's the ordinary Nigerians that are cannon fodder, and that cannot be acceptable to anyone. It cannot be. What are the state governments doing? That's my take on that matter, Nyota.
Again, as you said, it's not acceptable to anyone. It's not acceptable to me. It's not acceptable to you. It's not acceptable to Nigerians. The president of the Senate talks about the fact that they need to do everything to ensure Nigerians sleep with their 2 eyes closed. That is what they were voted for, to ensure that that happens. And the Constitution gives them that mandate to ensure the welfare and security of every citizen and resident of this country, Nigeria. But another matter also that comes to play is a story also there on the front page of the Vanguard newspaper. 4.6 billion naira was diverted in the office of the National Security Advisor under Dasuki and shared to organize prayers against insecurity. So, yeah, then another avenue to fight insecurity is prayers. Well, someone says if you keep doing the same thing and expecting a different result, then you're a fool. And I don't think that Nigerians are fools to expect that we're doing the same thing and expecting different results. So let's put on the thinking cap and move beyond this. That's it from the Vanguard. Ayo.
One other story that catches my attention is the issue of the minimum wage on the front page of the Nigerian Observer. The federal government has inaugurated a committee on minimum wage. That is the news. That's what is right there. A 37-member tripartite committee to comprise federal government agencies, agents of the federal government, state government, and organized labor, as well as the private sector. Okay, fine. What the president promised is not minimum wage, he promised a living wage. So right now, we understand that some states are literally struggling to pay the minimum wage of 30,000 naira that we have now. What is going to be different now, I guess we'll have to wait to see. Civil society organizations have their own role as well. Nigerians should be asking questions in the event that the federal government indeed makes good its promise. Where is the revenue going to come from? At a time when Nigerians themselves, we Nigerians, are crying that the federal government is borrowing too much money, and then here we are asking for. Definitely, people have to make more money. I don't know, I don't know if we have a consensus among ourselves about the things that we need to do, because certainly people need to earn more, because things are a lot more expensive everywhere now. The dollar at 1,500 naira as of yesterday. This morning we hear is a tiny bit lower, 1,400 and something. But hey, at the end of the day, every Nigerian goes to the same market. The rich don't have a market different from the poor. That's just the way it is. Whether it's in an air-conditioned supermarket or one at Mile 12 for Sabongeri in Kano, it's the same market that everyone goes to. So let's just ask ourselves, in the event that the federal government indeed says, okay, this is what it's going to do, how is it going to benefit the people on the long run? Will the prices of house rent, the prices of foodstuff, the prices of transportation, every other thing, will it go up as the living wage that the president has promised also go up? A whole load of conversations around that one, and I hope it is part of what the committee of the federal government will be looking at when they make up their minds.
The matter of minimum wage or no minimum wage or living wage, that conversation, whether it should be minimum wage or living wage, is something that we've been talking about over and over again. Labour is now proposing proposing about $300 for living wage. Is it feasible? Can it be paid? And some will argue that it may never work unless you allow the state to begin to mine their resources and use their resources. Where the states are self-sufficient, then they can begin to look at how to fund their workforce. Not everything coming from one point where the money is gathered into one person and then it's shared. It may never work because we've had in the studio a couple of times someone from the Debt Management Office talked to us about one of the issues Nigeria has, or the Budget Office, is a question of revenue. The revenue challenge is there. It's a constant. It's been there for a while. Nigeria is not getting enough money. Yesterday we asked the question, where are the dollars? Why is the NNPCL not bringing in the dollars? That was a question asked yesterday. Is that enough? Is that all we need? Now we're talking about taxation. There's a different tax policy coming in. Would that generate the kind of revenue needed to pay the living wage or even the increased minimum wage that the committee is likely to recommend? At the end of the day, it boils down to a different way of thinking, a different approach to handling the different challenges that we have in this country. Ayo, we all need to think differently about different things and begin to do differently too. And having said that, I want to say, that's all we'll end the look at some of the dailies today. Sunrise Daily will be back in a moment. Just stay with that.
Plenary of the year as the House of Representatives reconvenes 1 month after its last sitting. The Speaker begins with an address specifically on the state of the nation.
On the economic front, our country continues to grapple with numerous hurdles that impede our growth trajectory. The continuous depreciation of the Naira has far-reaching consequences, given that Nigeria relies heavily on imports for many essential items, including fuel and machinery.
The security situation is a major concern for him as he asks the president to go tougher.
Indeed, the time has come for the president to demand greater performance and accountability from our service chiefs and all security and enforcement agencies. I implore the president not to shy away from making the tough decisions. If necessary, we must not hesitate to enact changes within our security apparatus for the cost of inaction if inaction is far too great to bear. In light of these challenges, I propose convening a National Legislative Security Summit. This summit will serve as a crucible for ideas, where stakeholders from diverse sectors will forge enduring solutions to our security woes.
For matters of urgent national importance that follow, further buttress the need for urgent action against insecurity, as the spokesperson of the House was moved to tears over the murder of 2 traditional rulers in Ekiti State on the 29th of January.
The House recognizes that the entire people of Imojo, in Oye local government and Esu, in Ikole local government, and the entire state, have been thrown into mourning on account of the loss of our highly revered traditional rulers who were forces for community development, peace and stability in the constituency and the entire state. Take it easy.
The House then adjourns abruptly for a week to allow members campaign and participate in the by-elections scheduled for Saturday, the 3rd of February across the country. Terry Ikumi, Channels Television News.
And that's where we start off. Yesterday, the House resumed plenary, and we're looking at how that resumption and the resolutions that they came up with, especially the plan to look to convene a security summit. Joining us to look at this is Honorable Akin Rotimi, Chairman, House Committee on Information. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you very much for having me. Pleasure. Good morning, Nigeria.
It was an emotional day for you,
yes? Yes, indeed. For those of us that follow my own activities aside of my chairmanship of the House Committee on Media and Public Affairs, my constituency outreach, that I stay very much in touch with my people. And it's so surreal because I just concluded a tour of the constituency just last week, and I had cause to engage with one of the traditional rulers, because I led a delegation of about 3 traditional rulers just on Thursday to the Vice Chancellor and Management of Federal University, Oye Ekiti. So it's so surreal that just a few days ago I was with them, and then, just to hear that one of them had died, and then the other traditional ruler who I also enjoyed a very, very close relationship with. As you know, the entire state, and particularly the constituency, have been thrown into mourning because there were exceptional leaders. For one, the Olumojo of Imojo was a very fierce, he always spoke truth to power, and every point in time that we engaged, he always had, words to say, admonitions, but of course also chastisement of those of us in government. He always spoke truth to power. And, the LSO of Esu Ekiti is even closer home because his domain is just right next door to my own hometown. And is very well known and very well loved, very hands-on in terms of development. And it's a big blow for us. It's a sacrilege, it's an abomination that 2 highly revered traditional rulers on one day can, be so tragically cut down. I've had cause on 2 occasions to raise the issues of security on the floor. So for those that, a lot of Nigerians, generally there's a lot of cynicism about those of us in office, and all of that, yeah. So I've had cause to raise those occasions, on occasion twice, on the floor of the House, issues of security in my constituency. So overall, it was a very emotional moment. But aside of that, the important thing is that beyond the emotions, what are we doing? What concrete actions and steps are we doing to address, these issues?
Yeah, that question is a question that we were having a conversation, my colleague and I, earlier when we looked at the papers. And we're talking about doing the same thing and expecting a different result. Mm-hmm. So the House resolved to convene a security summit.
Correct.
That's another talk show.
No, I don't think so. So, very right. Yesterday, Right Honorable Abbas Tajuddin announced that we're going to have a legislative security summit. And it's very much in line with, the agenda, the legislative agenda of the 10th House to put robust engagement with Nigerians and various stakeholders at the forefront. As you know, towards even developing the legislative agenda, we've had at least 2 engagements with civil society, media, and other stakeholders. And aside of that, on electoral reforms, together with Yaga Africa, There was an electoral summit that was also held where far-reaching, recommendations were also derived, because electoral reforms is one of the crucial points for us in the 10th Assembly. So the Security Summit, the Legislative Security Summit, is also being planned to address these issues, to come with more, for us in the House, we represent 360 constituencies. We're the ones close to the people. We're the ones that take the feedback from the people. And it's important that we have that summit to come and discuss these issues, because like you said, the current, security architecture is certainly not working. It's not working. And I think Nigerians should also note that Right Honorable Abbas Tajuddin was bold enough on the floor yesterday to encourage, His Excellency President Bola Ahmed Tinubu to take necessary actions. If anybody is seen to be failing in any of their duties, if it's any of the security chiefs, or indeed any member of the executive government, should be shown the door, because we can't continue like this. It has gotten to a head. Almost every day on the floor, almost every plenary day, there's one security issue or the other. And I understand the security agencies are stretched. They don't have that number to deploy military posts everywhere. I think the entire security architecture should be looked at. I'm particularly encouraged by the fact that the Constitutional Review Committee, led by Right Honorable Abbas Tajuddin, Right Honorable Benjamin Kalu, the Deputy Speaker, is also even having a meeting today. That's why I'm still in Abuja and haven't gone down to the constituency yet. And I believe that at the forefront would be the issues of security. It's certain that we need to decentralize our security architecture and look at more ways where those at the grassroots can take the greater lead in addressing the security challenges.
So you're talking about decentralized. You don't want to use the phrase state police.
Right.
Okay. But are you not concerned about some of the fears that some have put out there that decentralizing Nigeria is not ready for that? Because the politicians themselves might be the ones who would more or less take over this apparatus at the local levels.
So I don't think so. I don't think Nigeria has not ever been not ready for, if you call it state police or decentralized. But aside of looking at state police, it's more a multi-level, multi-tier security structure that also recognizes those at the grassroots. Because you find that the modest successes we've achieved, in the security situation in our state, for example, has largely been led by the local hunters. They are the ones that know our terrain. They are the ones that know the people. They are the ones that get feedback, early warning mechanisms from, the villages that see strange movements and all of that.
Yeah.
So it's really not. We shouldn't even just look at it at just the subnational level of just the state governments. The local governments are very, very, critical to also making, these crucial changes. So for me, I think that it's not something we should be scared of. It's not something, it's the security situation at this point in time can also be exploited by politicians. It's certainly a way that we have to go. But I must also mention that I think it would be unfair for us not to give credit to our security agencies currently going through a whole lot, in managing the security situation in the country, even as is. They're stretched, extremely so. And that's why you saw the statement that Right Honorable Tajuddin Abbas and the House also issued on Armed Forces Remembrance Day. Many of them, indeed, are going through a whole lot to even allow us to enjoy the measure of security that we still have. So I think that we can't commend them enough. We can't thank them enough. We can't do enough to ensure that their security, their welfare is adequately taken care of. And more so, even survivors of, military veterans and those that, martyrs that unfortunately passed on in the service of the country are properly taken care of. And I'm sure that if you review legislative action over the past 6 months, you'll see that the House has indeed taken a lot of action in regards to this.
So yesterday, amongst the resolutions that the House took was to urge the Chief of Army Staff to redeploy adequate military personnel.
Yes.
But they are already stretched as it is.
Yes.
And the House is asking that he redeploys?
Right. So
wouldn't that be adding an extra load on what's already heavy?
So the key word there is redeploy, you see, because I understand as well, we can't set up military bases everywhere, but if you have identified a particular area as being a flashpoint, as being extremely prone because of the nature of topography and the nature of the forest and the fact that there are extremely bad roads in that area. So that's another leg, but I'll speak about that shortly. So the point about it is that the military had recognized the need to have a military outpost there, and there's actually one there. But because, for whatever operational reasons, they had reduced surveillance and patrol to just Tuesdays, only Tuesdays, saying that, okay, on that day, that's the market day, so between so hours when there's heavy traffic. So what happens in the rest of the week? So I think that until we figure out what else to do on the immediate, we need to very quickly urge, and which has been done based on my motion, which was carried by the House, to very quickly urge the military to redeploy men to that axis, as a starting point. The other point that we also raised is that Ekiti has some of the most dilapidated roads, right, in Nigeria, if I may say, and federal roads, that is. And the governor is doing a whole lot, His Excellency Governor Biodun Oyebanje, and I think he should also get a lot of credit in that regard. But, right now the federal government has a policy of not refunding to states, investments that they make in critical road infrastructure. So the governor is not expected to build, federal roads. So my encouragement, it's particularly in my constituency, I keep saying that in Ekiti North, it's a gateway into, between two states. We share borders with Kogi and on many fronts. Just last year during the rains, it was just simply impassable. The entire stretch between Ikole all the way to Omo was just, I think, was it Channels or TVC that even did, a documentary on that. So you can imagine when, very heavy vehicles, break down on the roads and can't pass for weeks on end. You can imagine just how that exposes communities to different kind of people going into the towns to know about our way of life, our movement, and making us extremely vulnerable. So I'd like to call on His Excellency, Minister Dave Umahi, to very urgently, do something about Ekiti roads, because it's one of the factors that have been implicated in this particular incident, because that entire stretch of the road all the way to Irele is just simply nothing to write home about. So there is that linkage, that nexus between the bad state of roads and insecurity in my constituency.
Just before my colleague Ayo comes in, besides the road, the vegetation cover, the vegetal cover around that area is also, yes. The forest cover there is quite thick.
Yes. And
you talked about the local
hunters.
The local hunters and all that.
Yes.
What were they able to find out?
So I don't want to preempt anything and saying anything at this point in time, because the governor, as his chief security officer, is on top of the situation. He was on site yesterday, was on ground in the communities, doing a whole lot, and he's giving the marching orders to the security agencies and all the local stakeholders, so the local government chairman, to give him a report on what exactly happened. So I'll leave that. I have a meeting with him in the coming days as well, and we're working very closely to be able to address these issues.
Ayo.
Honorable, just 1 second to bring this update to you, watching us from wherever you are, that the Supreme Court has affirmed the governor of Adamawa State, Governor Ahmadu Fintiri, as the validly elected governor of Adamawa State, and the Supreme Court has also dismissed the appeal by the APC governorship candidate Aisha Dahiru, also known as Binani. Again, to quickly inform you that the Supreme Court has affirmed Governor Ahmadu Fintiri as the validly elected governor of Adamawa State and dismissed the appeal by the APC governorship candidate Aisha Dahiru, also known as Binani. More on that, of course, in our bulletin at 11 o'clock. So back to you, Honorable. A good number of Nigerians have spoken about insecurity and the people behind it in the various parts of the country. And it's something that has been quoted a number of times. Former governor of Zamfara State, I think that's Governor Bello, when he was in government, said in public that while they were negotiating certain things, that's Governor Bello Matawalle, that while they were negotiating for the release of some of the students that were kidnapped in 2021, the 279 students from Government Girls Secondary School, Jangebe in Zamfara State, that while the state was in negotiation with the abductors, that some other persons offered money to the bandits to keep the girls in captivity. That is one of several times we've heard from that particular state, Zamfara, that some people will say that they will name and shame people who are behind insecurity in their state. On a number of occasions, we've also heard, even the current Minister of Solid Minerals has said quite a number of times that powerful Nigerians are behind the illegal mining and insecurity in various parts of the country. We've also heard a former lawmaker who has said in the open that some powerful Nigerians are behind insecurity. These are prominent Nigerians making these prominent claims. Will the House also be inviting them? Because it is one thing to invite security agencies and ask them, these questions. These prominent Nigerians still living that have made these prominent public pronouncements, will the House also invite them to name for you, whether privately or publicly, these prominent Nigerians that are behind the insecurity, which they said in the open? Will you be inviting them?
Thank you very much for your question. I don't rule out, action in that regard. In the speech that Right Honorable Abbas Tajuddin made yesterday, he particularly directed all House committees, security-related House committees, to take action in holding, the security chiefs to greater account and engaging further. As you know as well, the Senate has also invited the security chiefs to come and brief the National Assembly on, efforts being made in this regard. So I don't rule out that. I also don't rule out the fact that, yes, we require bold action from Mr. President against whatever interest any part of the country that want to exacerbate the security challenges. I think the buck still stops at the desk of Mr. President to take action. I believe he receives security reports, and these reports, for whatever reasons that these highly placed Nigerians that you mentioned, the Honorable Minister was from my state as well, we're very proud of him, that has made those statements. I believe that the security reports all get to the desk of Mr. President. So the buck stops, on the desk of Mr. President to take bold actions, because we can't continue like this. We can't continue like this.
Okay, Honorable.
That,
yes.
It has come to that time. Yes, please.
Yeah, Honorable, I agree with you, and every Nigerian will agree with you, that the buck stops at the table of Mr. President. But in the Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, the legislature comes before the executive. That is very instructive. Now, while the buck stops at the table of Mr. President, there are individuals, prominent Nigerians, in the cabinet of the president and outside of the cabinet of the president. Even a former lawmaker, Shehu Sani, has also made that bold claim that the powerful Nigerians are behind insecurity. These are Nigerians that can be easily invited. In the event that they make these things known, what would be, because are you expecting, for instance, that if these people give this list to the Mr. President, that it's his action, is there anything that the House can do about those people who have called out certain individuals in public?
Oh yes, certainly. And like you said, like I said earlier, and you'll see from the tone and the texture of our engagements in the 10th Assembly, this is a very bold House. This is a House that is very much in tune with Nigerians. This is a House that wants to carry out the yearnings of Nigerians. And I don't see any reason why, the House would not take, such bold action in engaging Mr. President.
Okay.
If indeed we found, during the course of our engagements with critical security chiefs, if they provide any information. As you know, when we had sectoral debate, the last time we had sectoral debates, we had questions across the board which had the media in attendance. But after that, we had an executive session where we sort of went deeper into the issues, and critical things were discussed. So if indeed we have those discussions, of course not everything can be made public, because of course security-related issues have to be handled at very high levels. But
okay.
I want to assure you, especially the caliber of people that we have in those security-related agencies, they want to make their mark. They want to contribute to delivering on the legislative agenda. So the House is bold enough to hold these issues and bring it to the front burner.
Okay.
So I don't see any reason why on our part. You did mention the role of the legislature, but overall I think that the executive is still very central to this, because the executive, the president is the commander-in-chief of the armed forces. There's a limited role we can do in terms of implementing and taking critical action on security issues.
Well, it's also instructive that you mentioned that the executive is the one that's supposed to execute. In all of the submissions that you have made, are you, the House of Assembly, the House of Representatives, or even the National Assembly, absolving the governors of any responsibility in this matter?
Well, like I said, it's not about putting blame, absolving, or vilifying anyone. I think at this point in time, we need to work together. The second tier of government, the state governors, of course, need to do a lot more. In many states, there's a whole lot being done already. But clearly, if it's not working, then that means we certainly need to do a lot more. So everybody has to be held to account. But aside of that, the points that I raised, particularly when we had our sectoral debate and had the service chiefs in attendance, was that we need to pay greater attention, to grassroots, indigenous, approaches to security challenges, and address whatever constitutional issues that don't allow these things to come into play. Because obviously this whole system, this whole thing is not working. Even in the federal capital, right? You have such issues as abductions and kidnapping for ransom and all of that, and very sad news and very sad tales coming out from even the federal capital. In my state, there's still about 9 individuals that have been held, for ransom taking school children taken from Emure Ekiti. So these are the issues, right? The state governors, yes, are doing a whole lot, and I think Nigerians can see for themselves that the state governments, as many of them as possible are doing their best, but obviously the entire security architecture needs to be overhauled. Security, intelligence,
there are a number of people, pardon me for butting in,
systems, a lot needs to be done.
Pardon me for butting in, Honorable. A number of people contest what you said now when you said the governors are doing, the most that they can do. Because the funding that is supposed to go to the lowest level or tier or government, whichever one you want to call it, to the local governments, there are a number of people who believe that those monies don't get to them. And consequently, the first line of defense. This is what security consultants have said to us a number of times, and I'm pretty sure that you may also want to engage some of them from time to time. They have said to us quite a number of times that the first tier of first level of security or protection against insecurity in our country is the local government level. And having had a stint at the local government level as well, we have elected executives of the local government, community development associations in the local government areas, and royal fathers, such as those that unfortunately have met their demise, in the recent occurrence in Ekiti State. These are the people that form the kernel of the Security Council of the local governments. And there is hardly a way that they would have the right funding that they are supposed to get to do these things, and that they will not do the needful. So you talked about constitutional intervention. And not a few times, 2 or 3 times, the National Assembly has passed the local government financial and administrative autonomy bills a number of times. Not all states have signed up, have agreed that there should be autonomy at the local government levels. What is the National Assembly going to do about that one?
Well, it's back to the people, because I don't rule out the fact that this would be looked at again in the 10th Assembly. It's really up to the people to hold their state assemblies to account, to make sure that if indeed in the constitutional review process this comes up again and is passed and it goes to the local, the state assemblies for concurrence, they should hold the state assemblies to account to make sure that this is something that is important to them, that affects their lives, and that these issues are passed. So, okay. I mean, for me as well, when you talk about state governments and the autonomy of local government, I can say for one that in my own state, the state governor has given, the support, to, the local government, the local councils, to be able to, play that role. I can give you examples. The immediate past chairman of the local government in Ikoli, Shola Olomini, he did a whole lot. He did his best in terms of security, especially the chairman of the LCDA, Ajoni LCDA, Prince Michael Ogugbemi, is doing a whole lot in terms of, security issues in within the constituency.
Okay.
So I think we need to move beyond laying blame wholesale. There are 36 states. And you can't just say, oh, governors are not. Which governor is not?
Okay. Well, perhaps that's one of the interventions. My apologies again, Mr. Honorable. Perhaps that's that's why you are a member of the National Assembly and not just the State House of Assembly. That's why we can ask you. It's a national issue and not just something for the states. If you can just give us a quick update, what is the current situation now concerning the kidnappings that happened in Ekiti State? How many children were kidnapped? Has there been any communication from these kidnappers to the government or to any of the people who are directly affected?
Thank you. I wouldn't want to preempt and usurp the role of Mr. Governor as the Chief Security Officer of the state. However, I'm aware that 6 children are being held against their will, and 3 teachers and I believe a driver as well are being held. And my own duty, because we need to understand everybody's role, my own duty is to bring this, to the floor, which I did yesterday. And instructions were given, directives were given to the security agencies to make sure that this, is addressed. And as you know as well, Mr. President also issued a statement that, these children need to be rescued. It's just unthinkable that children on the way on a school bus. If we've gotten to this level, then I think everybody has to be worried in the country. And again, I think, and I want to put this challenge to Mr. President and the security agencies, that Nigerians are beginning to have a statement fatigue. I'm shocked, I'm saddened, and all of that, to hear of this and that. Nigerians have statement fatigue and want action. And I think this would be a very good opportunity for Mr. President to show the seriousness it takes, security issues by ensuring that these children are brought back, in good health and well-being. Aside of that, the human security aspect of it, there's huge unemployment. There's the economy is not in very good shape, if we want to be honest with ourselves. The standard of living, cost of living has, gone through the roofs, and these issues have a nexus with insecurity. And I think we need, urgency. That's one thing that I think that we need. That, especially for those of us, we take the bashing all the time from people in public, and I think we deserve it. I think we need to do a lot more and be a lot more urgent about this. So my point that I'm making is that the Emure children should be an example that Mr. President is serious about securing Nigerians.
Honorable to me, the urgency incidentally happens that the House resumed at a time like this.
Yes.
And there's need for urgency in all actions. When's the next plenary?
The next plenary is 6th, Tuesday 6th.
So
yes.
if the House is thinking in terms of urgency, why go on this break again? Why don't you just continue to ensure that these things are dealt with?
Right. So I need to address this issue because, many times Nigerians have this perception when time of the year the House has gone on recess and they think that, these guys are just going and playing around and faffing around and all of that. The truth of it is that the House runs from inauguration on June 13th. The House runs its entire lifespan till 2027. The fact that we don't have plenary does not mean that things don't happen. There's a lot of legislative action going on across the board. The committees at the committee. I have a meeting this afternoon with the chairman of the House Committee on Police Affairs. I have a meeting because I'm the Ekiti State representative on the House Committee on Constitutional Review. We have a meeting at about 12 noon today. A lot of members are in their constituencies engaging Nigerians. So I think that we need to correct that, misrepresentation. When we hear that the House is on recess, a lot is going on the background. I know at least 2 committees. Public Accounts is holding meetings, extensively right now.
Everybody knows that the Public Accounts has been holding meetings even while the plenary was in recess.
Exactly, and public petitions as well. And we've had a lot of success stories from public petitions, very difficult cases that citizens have gone through and have approached, their members to bring before the House, which have been addressed.
Honorable Akinrotimi, we want to thank you for coming in this morning. We hope that these matters are resolved real quickly.
Thank you very much for having me.
Honorable Akinrotimi is the Chairman, House Committee on Information and Public Affairs, who joined us this morning. We'll take a moment and move on to the business studios with Laddie Williams for Business Morning on Sunrise Daily.
Thank you, Newton. Well, we're in the final trading day of January, and definitely, if you've been able to book some good profit in January, congratulations. But if you've not, then February might be your month. Good morning, good evening, wherever in the world you're watching from. It's Business Morning coming to you live right here from Channels HQ. Well, first off, let's get the stories that set your agenda now. We see the Central Bank of Nigeria has announced the settlement of all verified forex claims by foreign airlines operating in the country, with an additional payment of $64.44 million, bringing total disbursements to foreign airlines by $136 million. According to the CBN, this development underlines the bank's commitments to resolving outstanding FX obligations across all sectors. Meanwhile, in a statement, the International Transport Association, as IATA says, it welcomes the central bank's announcement. IATA stresses that while the release of an additional $64.44 million is encouraging, it is still a long way to go in addressing the full issue. It's about $700 million. It remains blocked in the country's commercial banks. And yeah, definitely, the Naira, again, back in the news. Another headline, a new low at this point, sank to about 1,482 Naira per dollar, a falling strong demand on the official market. And you see it's down about 9.03% in the official window. But here's the twist now. Normally we're used to the parallel markets, being weaker. But this time, it's the official window that's weaker. See the BDC there, 1,455 Naira to the dollar. A 0.34% depreciation. So we see that spread there. We're not used to that, and definitely be looking out for what happens. For the intraday high and low, the spread was still quite significant. To see for the peer-to-peer markets there, and definitely we've heard there's a change of methodology for how they capture the price in the official window. So that's why we're seeing now, I guess, more weakness in the official window compared to the parallel market. But definitely be looking out for how the Naira closes. We do know the central bank is working hard to, clear off all of those backlogs, at this time. So for some outlook, we know January is a month of outlook. See, the International Monetary Fund has downgraded Nigeria's economic growth projections for 2024 to 3%. From 3.1% it had forecast in October last year. The IMF disclosed this in its latest World Economic Outlook update, where it estimated that Nigeria's economy grew by 2.8% in 2023, a slight drop from the 2.9% projected in October. At the same time, the international lender expects Nigeria's economy to grow by about 3.1% in 2025. Meanwhile, IMF's 2024 projection is below the federal government's expectation of 3.76%. In its October updates, the IMF stated that Nigeria's slow growth will be because of weaker oil and gas production, and we'll definitely be discussing that later on in the show. But barely a month after commencing operations, Africa's largest private refinery, Dangote Refinery, is set to begin importing crude from the U.S. in coming weeks. According to a report by Bloomberg, the refinery has ordered 2 million barrels of WTI Midland from the United States-based oil trader Trafigura Group for delivery in February. This significant development comes as a $20 billion mega facility has so far received up to 4 crude oil shipments from several sources, most recently from the Nigerian National Petroleum Company Limited, NNPCL. Dangote Refinery, which has a capacity of 650,000 barrels per day, is expected to help Nigeria reduce its reliance on imported fuel. But I guess at this point, if the Dangote Refinery has to import oil, who knows if that's going to help with affordability. Hopefully, we'll keep watching that. To the oil market now, oil prices fell today due to lackluster economic activity in China. We know the biggest buyer of oil there. We see Brent down 0.3%, $82.60 a barrel this morning in early trade. And the cheaper version, WTI crude, which is the one Dangote is going to be importing. We see that's at $77.59 a barrel. Not 0.3% drop there. So we're still seeing that volatility, play out in the oil market. Supply concerns, demand concerns, all of that interplay, moving prices in the oil market. Well, we'll take a quick break now. When we come back, we're going to be just looking at Nigeria's oil refining outlook in 2024 and beyond. That's our next conversation. Do stay with us. Now, let's go deeper into Nigeria's oil and gas industry. In the 2024 budget, the government targets about 1.78 million barrels of crude oil production in 2023, and average daily output of crude oil and condensate by November 31st was about 1.46 million barrels per day. But we see what most of the refineries, some that are existing and coming on stream, at some point, we see the amount of crude that will be needed. We see the Dangote refinery there needs about 650,000 barrels per day of crude. Port Harcourt refinery, 210,000 barrels. Warri and Bor refinery, that's going to be coming up at some point. That's going to need 200,000 barrels per day of crude. Let's bring in Mr. Nick Agule now, oil and gas expert, joining us from Makudi via Zoom. Great to have you on the show.
Good morning, Ladi. How are you doing?
I'm great. Thank you so much for joining us. So we see the federal government is targeting about 1.78 million barrels per day of crude output in the 2024 budget. As it stands now, is it achievable? And what should be done to actually make this happen?
A very good question. So Nigeria has a budget problem, like you have said. We have budgeted 1.748 million barrels per day with the budget. Current production levels are about 1.3 million barrels. So the revenues that are coming in are below the budgeted benchmark. Question is that the 1.7 48 million barrels projected achievable. The answer is yes, it's achievable. Let's not forget, Nigeria produced 2 million barrels of oil previously. That means there is a stored capacity to produce 2 million, if not more. And all that it needs then is for the operators, with the active support of government, to go back to the levels at which we were producing previously. Fields are there. The reserves are there, surface infrastructure is there, pipelines are there, terminals are there. The reason why we are not producing 2 million barrels are essentially because insecurity, number one, and insecurity also leads to pipeline shutdowns when the guys who are cooking in the Niger Delta puncture pipelines so that they can extract the crude. If we take care of security, fix the pipelines, and then bring on stream fields that hitherto have been shut in, I can't see why we will not go 1.7.
And definitely, when it comes to getting crude, to these to the Dangote refinery, we also have some other refineries, that are supposed to come up, at some point. We have the Port Harcourt refinery, Kaduna refinery, Warri, and Bor. And we see all of this. 650,000 barrels for Dangote, Port Harcourt, 210,000 barrels per day. This is the amount of crude that will be needed, for these refineries. And that's coming up to about 1.something million if you add all of that together. So I'm trying to imagine a situation where all these refineries, come on stream, and seeing that Dangote refinery is having to import WTI at this time. Do you think we can meet supply of the refineries if they all come online, at some point?
It will be a very good thing that Nigeria is able to refine all of the crude that we produce in Nigeria. And the numbers you have there on the screen will indicate that if all these refineries should come on stream there as we speak, then it means that the totality of the crude production that we're making in Nigeria will be fed into these refineries, value added, jobs created, and then we consume locally, and the balance we export. That's actually the position where Nigeria should be, where we should be adding value to food before we export it. However, the markets, the crude oil markets, don't actually just work like that. I believe that some Nigerians will be shocked to hear that Dangote refinery has gone as far as the United States to go and import crude oil. And the reason is because crude is sold ahead before production. So you have the futures market, and you will see that the operators in Nigeria today would have already committed their crude months and years ahead. And so even Dangote, a local refinery, comes on stream, these operators will be hamstrung to divert their crude from the contracts that have already entered into and channel it into Dangote refinery. So what has happened clearly here is that Dangote was not able to get all of its crude requirements from the local market. That is why it has gone over the United States. But I believe that now that the refinery is on stream and they are now in the market shopping for crude, they will be able to enter contracts with local suppliers who will be able to give them possibly a sufficient amount of crude oil or whatever is left to be imported will not be significant. That's the way the crude markets work. And we hope that Nigeria will be able to raise production back to the 1.7 of the budget or even 2 million barrels if we take care of the underlying issues that are pinning down production.
We also know that, some of our oil under the ground now that's supposed to be produced at some point, most of them have been pledged for, loans already sold, in most of these futures contracts. So at this point, is it time to stop selling future production or future output? What do you think?
Yeah, so there's the thing about the Nigeria oil and gas industry. There are all sorts of operators. You have the international oil company, the IOC. Then you have the local or indigenous producer. Then you have the NNP, which is the government-owned business. They are producing YouTube, but they also have joint ventures with international oil companies. So for the international oil companies, you will realize that for most of them, whatever is their share of crude oil, they are putting that crude oil through to a refinery that is owned by them somewhere in the world. So when Shell takes its own share of crude oil in Nigeria, it's already committed to a share refinery somewhere in the world. And that cannot be broken only because Dangote refinery has come on stream. Because they own the crude. It's theirs, and they can decide on what to do with it. Instead, there's some sort of moral situation for the government to say, hey, you need to give some crude to local refineries. But outside that, the private operators will, sell their crude or put their crude where they are already connected. It's the NNPC who takes Nigeria's share of the crude, where government has power, decide on what happens with that. The government now says, no, NNPC do no longer put Nigeria's crude into futures contract and ensure that the local refineries are sufficiently supplied. Then that's a statement or a stand that the government can take. Because of what need would Nigeria be exporting crude, while Dangote and the other refineries are importing crude? At the end, we're just going to suffer the logistics cost, which would have been avoided entirely if crude in Nigeria was piped into the market.
All right. Well, definitely. There's so much to unpack, but I'm sure we'll be able to get you at some point, the studios, so we can have a seamless conversation. Thank you so much for joining, Mr. Nick Agule, an oil and gas expert, joining us from Makadi. Thank you so much.
Thank you, and have a nice day to all.
Thank you. All right, we'll take a quick break now. When we come back, we head straight to the markets. The final trading day of January. Let's see what happens next in February. That's our next conversation. Do stay with us. All right, let's get a check on the local bourse now from yesterday's close. For the first time since January 10th, 2024, the NGX closed in bearish zone as the all-share index declined by about 1.5%. If you take a look at the numbers there, 103,000 points, but still above the 100,000 mark. So it's a first pullback in about 20 days, 1.49% drop. And we see the market cap, total capitalization there at 56.42 trillion. Let's look at the trading volume and activity now. We see it's lower than what we had the previous day for volume. 648 million is down about 5.94%. We see value there, 11 billion. That's what's traded, down 57%. And deals 14,000, definitely less than the previous day. Let's look at sectoral performance. Let's see how that's looking. We know the banking counter is still on that massive, big drop there for the banking counter, 6.73%. We saw all the tier 1 banks down big 9%, 8%, and we saw some tier 2 banks also hit hard there by profit taking. Consumer goods 2.59%, all red. And the insurance counter, that was also the financial services, that's down 6.44%, mirroring what we saw with the banking counter. Industrial goods, that's been the shiner for 2024 in January, because this market, this sector has been up big jumps so far, with the cement giants always propping up that counter, propping up the whole market. We're seeing some profit taking there, but not as big as what we have in other counters, 0.39%. That's a drop. So let's bring in Mukhtar Mohammed now, a financial market analyst, join us via Zoom. Great to have you in the show, Mukhtar.
Thank you, Ladi.
Yeah,
Thanks
so
for having me.
Yeah, fantastic. So we're seeing a drop now. First one in about 20 days. So the question now is this the beginning of a major correction or just a healthy pullback?
Ladi, I don't know when people talk about correction. Correction is when you think the violation is very low. I mean, too high to meet up. But I think what we are seeing a little bit of pullback. I don't think it's market correction. It's just a little bit of pullback. And like you said, in your report, the volume is still low. The volume is not as the volume that we saw in maybe a lot of people are trying to sell the previous day. So the volume is still low. So there's still a lot of opportunity there. So I don't think so. It's a pullback, and it's a pullback that will create opportunity for people that have lost entering maybe the previous one to begin to look at how to strategize later. Not to forget that the earnings season is approaching, and these 4 major banks that you saw those pullback from and are banks that would definitely pay good dividend to their investors.
Yeah, and looking at the banking counter, it's been on a steady, downward trend. We've seen a lot of profit taking, on that counter. Do you think there's still more downside, coming for that banking counter, or is it time to buy the dip?
Well, I think it depends on what strategy you are adopting. I don't think it's time to buy the dip, because you need to look at which of the banking sectors have gone, or were they really were they overpriced and stuff like that. But I think for the tier 1 bank, there's still a lot of opportunities there. Again, like I said, depending on your strategy. If you're somebody that thinks that cash is king in an economy like this, especially when the economy has some drawback like what we are seeing in Nigeria, then you need to jump into those banking stocks to get those good dividend payout that we think they would definitely pay. So that one is good for those investors that are looking for cash. But again, if you're an investor that are looking for capital appreciation, you're not the type that's waiting for the dividend payout. And those are the investors that are actually pulling back down, now bringing down those prices there. It's not the best time for you to enter. Maybe you wait until after the results have been released, then you strategize to re-enter, especially when you are awaiting the first quarter result. So it depends on your strategy.
Yeah, and definitely being an investor, in this market, definitely not an easy time. Having to deal with currency devaluation and rising inflation. So your cash is actually losing, value. So at this point, some investors might say, what, let me stay in cash. But that's getting ripped off by inflation and, currency devaluation. So what do you think is the best strategy, for 2024? Knowing that this market has been in a bull market for a while now, and there's a risk that there might be a major pullback, at some point. what would you say is the best strategy to hedge against inflation and currency devaluation in 2024?
Yeah, Ladi, I need to make a point clear. When people talk about currency devaluation and when people talk about holding the dollar comparable to the naira, I have this analogy that I keep saying the only time the dollar makes sense is when you convert it back to the naira. Any dollar that is not giving you a return up to like 4 to 10% is definitely not your dollar value is going down. The only time you see the value of the dollar goes up is when you exchange it to the Nigerian naira and when you are about to do business in Nigeria. But if you are doing business outside the shore of this country, the value of the dollar, once you are not adding anything to it, then it's going down. So now, what is your strategy? Like I said, liquidity is king in any economy. And so when you have this liquidity, sometimes they help you to take advantage of cheap assets. And those cheap assets will come in when there is a pullback, like what you are seeing now. So if my strategy is, if I'm looking for ways to buy more assets, then I think of having more liquidity. I won't keep my naira just lying down fallow. I will try to use my naira to buy cheap assets because of the devaluation of the currency. Because now that means some of the assets are cheap. And now when you talk about how to hedge inflation, Ladi, I think you and I have said this before. I think the only place that have beat inflation is the equity market. And as it stands, so it's still where they will keep on beating inflation. Now, secondly, when people talk about the pullback, are we going to get those corruption? I said the time we normally have those corruption is when you have the foreign investors that are pulling out a lot of cash out of the economy, trying to take it to the economy. As it stands now, foreign investment in Nigeria, especially in the equity market, is 15 years low. And so 95%, according to the NGS index, 95% of those that are in the equity market today are Nigerian. So the pullback, like I said, is just temporary. And we have retail investors like the pension fund administrator, high net investors. They are still there because they believe so much in this economy. So I don't think there's any cause for anyone for alarm yet.
All right, according to Mukhtar, no cause for alarm. But let's look at, well, you did mention his earning season. It's upon us, at this point. We've seen some audited and unaudited, results at this time. But let's take a spotlight on the audited, result we have so far. And that's talking about Geregu Power PLC. We see revenue 83 billion for the financial year 2023, up 74%. Operating profit, that's up about 110%. Profit before tax, you see that's 61%. Dividend proposed 20 billion naira. So looking at this result, Mukhtar, how are you seeing this? Looks quite impressive.
Very, very impressive because, but again, the other news is that the 20 billion dividend payout, 78.25% of that 70 billion is going to Femi Otedola. So there are many people who have to share the percentage. Before now, the holding was about 95.55% belonging to Femi Otedola, but at this report now we're seeing that they're about 78%, and the other 1% I think is owned by most institutional investors. So if I am an investor, definitely I don't think you want to go there now because again the price has really gone up, but the results are fantastic. But like I said, the result is fantastic, especially for Femi Otedola. That will definitely keep him in the Fox News, Fox 20 richest African for a very long time. In terms of performance, then when you look at the price, then you look at the sector that he plays, which is the power sector, and then you look at Transcorp, you look at the price Transcorp is at this moment, and then you want to begin to take a second look. So for Geregu, I think it's a good result, but like I said, the good result mostly favored Mr. Femi Otedola, the billionaire. So result fantastic, but again, we'll see whether there will be any game changer in them acquiring more assets in terms of, especially in the area of generation, which the government is saying that they will do a little bit of sales. They will maybe handing over generation. I think Geregu will want to play an important role there. I think for me, that will be the only way that they will grow their revenue. But not to forget that the electricity company has also increased their tariff, even if that has not come to the end user yet, because government is taking last chunk of that. Definitely when that comes into the end users, and a lot of end users will find themselves paying more for power, that also will have effect on the bottom line. Well, now I think it's a good result, but like I said, especially for Femi Otedola.
Right. So looking at, other earnings that we'll be expecting, at this point, how do you see, these earnings shaping the investor sentiment, in this quarter?
Yeah, Larry, sometime when these earnings start coming, we realize that it has already been priced in by investors. And sometimes you don't see those capital appreciation that you definitely want to see. But again, I think, like I say, cash is king when you have an economy like this, and especially when you have liquid cash to reinvest into the market. And that's what most investors do with their dividend payout, especially those high net investors. So investors will be keen to get some of those cash. Especially for the tier one bank, and also not forget the conglomerate. Also, I'm sure their result will begin to pour in anytime from now, because if they are almost all of them are in a closed season. So definitely, it's a good time for investors. Most investors will start smiling to the bank. But like I always say, it depends on when you enter the market, because if you are in the banking sector, equity, you entered when Access Bank was at a low of 13 naira, and it's at a high about, even if it closed at about 26 naira. You still make a lot of capital appreciation. You want to take those dividends also aid against inflation, which you have really talked about already. So definitely, I think investors will still be looking at those equity that we pay in cash.
Okay, well, it's the final trading day of. What are you expecting for the close of trade today, and what are you projecting for February?
I think when the close of trade today, I think there will be a little bit drawback. We might not see the kind of losses we saw yesterday, even if we might get there, but I don't think it will see some recovery from some major equities, especially the banking sector. In the month of February, it will all be determined with a trigger, and like I said, that trigger will have to come in terms of earnings that will hit the market sometime between February and March. So February, I expect the market to be ups and down, investors being cautious, waiting for that result. Once one of those results hits the market and is fantastic, then you begin to see the effect on other equity going forward. But I think in the month of February, we'll see investors do wait and see.
Right, definitely a wait and see game. Let's see what February, has in its possession, because we know it's the month of love. Let's see if we're going to see some love in this market. Thank you so much, Mukhtar Mohammed, CEO of Financial Mukhtar. Thank you.
Thank you for having me, Ladi. You have a pleasant day.
You too. All right, so let's see what's happening with our listed market. 1,054 points, 2.84%. That's the jump we see there for the unlisted market. We see the volume traded 92% down. Value, that's about 1,000%. Big jump there in value of stocks traded in the unlisted markets. 17 deals, 30% more. And stocks traded about 4 units at 42.86%. And we see the top trades. That's for the listed market there. That's for the NGX. Japol Gold, 59.79 million is Transcore, 52.06 million. I would say Axis Core, 46.81 million. So countdown now. Going to see what's going to happen for the final trading day of January. So that's how the market is looking, and that's what we're expecting going forward for the close. Thank you for watching. It's back to the Sunrise team now.
Time of the year when civil society organizations under the Transparency International gather to provide details under the annual Corruption Perception Index ranking. As we all know, for 2023, Nigeria moves 5 steps higher compared to the 2022 rating.
The index revealed that Nigeria scored 25 out of 100 points in 2023 Corruption Perception Index, compared to 24 points in the year 2022. Corruption Perception Index, while Nigeria ranks 145 out of 180 countries, compared to 150 on the 2022 Corruption Perception Index results.
Some of the 7 highlights of the 2023 report that requires improvement includes electoral corruption, appointment of questionable individuals into government, wasteful expenditures.
It's no longer news again that what we know as a cliche is go to court. We don't know if our votes will count or will count in the future, or the courts will decide our ballots. But this calls for concern on the review of the Electoral Act. The poor performance of the election fails to justify the huge resources allocated to INEC for the conduct of the elections. Again, it's no longer news if INEC conducts free, fair, and credible elections, or we just say we conduct elections. These times, we don't know if elections are free, we don't know if it is fair, or if it is credible.
However, the report points at certain positives, highlighting areas of improvement in the last 1 year. The Perception Index also gives some recommendations.
The anti-corruption agencies also need to provide information on data on their arrests, investigations, and prosecutions, especially of politically exposed persons and high-profile individuals, as well as give information on the proceeds of crime they recover in line with the Proceeds of Crime Management Act 2022.
This is the first CPI under the administration of President Bola Tinubu, and the global body may just be using this benchmark to fight against corruption under his leadership. Emanuela Ekele, Channels Television News.
And to look at that report and the Nigeria standing, we have here in the studio Alwal Rafsanjani, who is the country rep of the Transparency International. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you very much. Good morning.
Morning. That report gave Nigeria 145 out of 180, an improvement of 5 steps from 2022.
Well, I think it's important to make this clarification. Yes, it is true, compared to last year Corruption Perception Index, Nigeria, especially on the most important one, which is the score, because the score is the most important one. The point is just happened when some countries either improve and go up or decrease and go down. So what we should be focusing on is actually the score, which is 25, as against last year, which is 24. Now, there are some reasons why last year, or rather this year, score shows improvement. First, we've also seen the efforts of the anti-corruption agencies to make arrests and also recover both domestic and international looted assets of Nigerians. And we have commended that effort because we now have in place the Proceeds of Crime Law, that's Act, which clearly empowers the government to actually confiscate stolen assets. And that commendable action really helps to improve the Nigerian rating. Secondly, one of the major areas where public officials connive to siphon public taxpayers' money is hiding under a disguise of company they own or their relatives own, and they will be giving them contracts. They will also give them tax waiver. You will be surprised to see how a particular company, in some instances, even multinational company, will be giving 5-year waiver, tax waiver, which if you use that money, will be enough to block so many challenges that we have. But because some of the government officials, they have share in those companies, so they would rather let the country lose taxes and revenue, then they will now give them 5-year tax holiday in the name of them doing, corporate social responsibility, which nobody monitored. Nobody, observe what a company does when you give him that kind of, free money. Now, particularly with regard to the oil companies, where you have this kind of a lot of fraud, As you can see, even from the NAITI report, many companies are refusing to pay what they are supposed to pay to the government. So we encourage the Nigerian government to develop beneficial ownership register, which will clearly now show the identity of people who owns which company. Now, with that beneficial ownership register, we will know who are the people behind the oil companies, the different kind of companies, and the different kind of estates, and houses, and all sorts of companies that they use to siphon public taxpayers' money. So we commended Nigerian government for taking that advice to initiate and develop beneficial ownership register, which is now giving us an idea on how some public officials are actually conniving to divert taxes or revenue that should have ordinarily come to the Nigerian copper.
So 1 second here. That's true. You said that the 25 point is the most important thing.
Yes.
But it's below the sub-Saharan African average of 33.
Well, like I said, the score is the most important thing. Then the point that you are talking about is what is actually below what is being expected, because even some other countries, like Ghana, they have performed better than Nigeria. And that is why we are telling the Nigerian government, you need to improve, you need to put system in place to ensure that our rating in the subsequent corruption perception index will be able to improve. One, yes, is better than stagnation, and it's better than to, come down to like 20, But we need to do a lot of work, and part of the work that has been done to upgrade us to this 25 is what I have just mentioned to you, having beneficial ownership register, access to recovery airport, and the vibrant space for civil society and the media in Nigeria for demanding accountability, for putting public officials to their toes. These are the major reasons why we're able to go up. So if we can look at other areas where we need to do a lot to improve Nigerian rating and Nigerian corruption system, definitely you can talk about judicial corruption that has been a serious challenges to Nigerians. Access to justice is a big problem. You need to go to other local government or a state level. Ordinary Nigerians, access to justice is a problem. Secondly, even when you have high-profile corrupt persons, they know what to do to compromise justice. Even on the electoral tribunal thing, you saw the clear evidence of misconduct or even corruption, as some people allege in the judiciary. So if you want to a rating to improve, you need to carry a serious judicial sector reform. Thirdly, the security sector is one of the major areas where a lot of corruption and where a lot of Nigerians are losing their lives on a daily basis, because some public official handling security sector decided to be stealing the money that is meant to buy arms and ammunition or to even pay the welfare of the security personnel. Evidences have shown that Nigerian public officials deliberately and consciously allow the insecurity to go outside of the control, because money that are budgeted for the security work, you then see it being applied. This has already been raised by Auditor General report in his previous report. Secondly, just recently, a court in the UK, we got injunction to return to Nigerian government some money that Nigerian officials supposed to buy arms and ammunition, but they share the money, they chop the money. So the defense procurement fraud in Nigeria need to be tackled, and we need to carry a serious security sector reform that will empower and equip the police, Nigerian police, to be able to do the work that they are supposed to do, rather than deploying the army everywhere in Nigeria detracting them from their primary responsibility. You need to empower the Nigerian police by providing them with equipment, with facilities and motivation, as well as their welfare, to be able to be more professional, more responsive and responsible, and be able to respond to the yearning and aspiration of the security challenges in Nigeria, not the soldier, because the soldier is not supposed to be dealing with the domestic issue unless these other security arms are proven not to be able to do that. But because there's a corruption, there's a money involved in this, some people don't want that to work. So again, another area that you need to do a lot to improve the rating is, of course, in the area of electoral transparency. There's no way you can continue with this kind of use of dirty money to rig election and tell people go to court because you've already settled judiciary to win the election against the will of the people. You must carry serious reform in the electoral process and the political party system to enable Nigerians make choice and be able to elect people of integrity, people with experience and capacity and patriotism, so that they can provide quality leadership and governance in Nigeria.
You know, I was asking if we could get one of those the slides. Okay, here are the areas you were talking about: electoral corruption, judicial corruption, corruption in the security sector, wasteful expenditure, opaqueness of public institutions, failure to prosecute high-profile cases, and reward of corrupt and questionable individuals with appointments. These are the areas you say Nigeria's negative indices that need to be worked on.
Exactly.
But you were just talking there about the electoral corruption and judicial corruption. You also mentioned corruption in the security sector. Wasteful expenditure. Let's look at that bit about wasteful expenditure and opaqueness in public institutions. One would think that because we had the Bureau of Public Enterprise and Nigeria's procurement laws are so stringent and all of that, all of those matters would have been resolved by now.
No, deliberately some public officials undermine the full implementation of public procurement law in this country. We struggled and advocated for the passage of that, and you recall President Erado, the first assignment he did when he came into power was to sign the public procurement law. And we work as civil society to mobilize and sensitize Nigerians, both contractors, both government officials, media, civil society, to understand the importance of having public procurement law, because we noted that most of the corruption, were actually through undermining or rather refusing to follow due process in terms of public procurement. So public officials refuse to allow the public procurement law to take place. For example, up to now, more than 10 years after the law, the government consistently is refusing to inaugurate the Public Procurement Council, which is supposed to be the driver of the implementation of public procurement law. Secondly, public officials, they award contract without reference to public procurement law. Again, when you look at the freedom of information that we have, consistently, public officials are refusing to comply with public procurement, with the freedom of information law. So when you look at all this, though you have the law, but the law has been completely made redundant. And there's no way your rating will improve if this major area of corruption in terms of procurement, in terms of access to information, in terms of making sure that public expenditure are not wasted or diverted. Because what you see now with all the development going on around, you see that public officials, instead of allowing the appropriation law to work and ensure that there's a proper and prudent management of our resources, you see what they are doing. They create what they call project account. And
Mr. Rafsanjani, if you don't mind me
millions into their own personal account.
Just 1 second, Mr. Rafsanjani. Is this the opaqueness that you speak to from the slides that we showed earlier? Is this the opaqueness in the government's spending that you're talking about?
Yes, I'm just trying to expatiate. I'm just trying to add more detail into what is going on, because if government, if you have a legal framework and the legal framework is disrespected, there's no way you can be rated as a serious countries that want to fight corruption. Because
but I also note, just 1 second, I also note,
help you.
My apologies, I also note that part of the report also says that even though the index does not show specific incidences of corruption in the country, it indicates the perception of corruption. So exactly what does that mean? Are you saying that we have improved in the area of corrupt practices, but the perception of corruption is still quite high? What exactly is that report saying there?
Okay, you recall recently different agencies, including government agencies, have also conducted similar survey showing, how corruption is deep in Nigeria. If you look at the ICPC rating, if you look at the UNODC rating, if you look at other organization rating, it shows and it confirms what even the TIE is saying. Now, what we are saying here, Nigerians are even saying that, look, stop calling it perception, because we are experiencing this physically. Today, if you want to go and do passport, you will encounter corruption there. Today, if you want to go and do driving lesson, you will encounter corruption. Today, if you want to apply for a job, you will be faced with corruption and extortion. Today, if you go to police station, this is what we see, and we are saying that what are the motivating thing is, of course, is abuse of public office, bribery, and the diversion of public funds. Those are the things that are happening, and it's real. You are not really doing any...
That's noted. I just want to ask one more question before we... one or two more questions before we call it a day this morning. This report, this Corruption Perception Index report, is it something limited to just the federal government agencies more than...
Federal government, we look at the state, and we look at the local government, and we look at these incidences of all the problems that we are talking about. Because when you go to the local government, you will see magistracy in action. The corruption in that place, you will see it there. If you go to the state, in fact, virtually state governors have actually pocketed the judiciary in their state. If you look at how procurement are done in those states, you would see that there's nothing to write about. So the corruption is not limited to federal government. Corruption is the entire problems of Nigeria, and that is why corruption is the entire problems of Nigeria, and that is why we are calling for collective action to ensure that every Nigerian contribute towards defeating and dealing with the corruption and corrupt practices. We cannot be promoting and rewarding corrupt people or people who have been suspended or suspected to be corrupt with political appointment.
Just one last thing. My apologies.
Capture state.
Yes, just one last thing. How is this report compiled? Where does the data come from that forms this Corruption Perception Index report?
Okay, so we will not get tired of explaining all these issues, the sources where this is done. Globally, for all the countries that Transparency International brought these indices, is measuring from at least a minimum of 13 sources. For Nigeria, we have 8 sources that are globally acknowledged as very credible, undisputable, irrefutable, sources where they compile this data, and what TI does is simply to put together this data. For example, the World Bank has its own data. If you go to the World Bank, you will see the rating for Nigeria. If you go to the IMF executive, opinion, you will see you will see that data. If you go to sources like Bertelsmann Foundation, you will see they give you their rating for Nigeria. If you go to a Variety of Democracy, you will see their rating. So it is very clear. You can just look at all the sources where we got this, and you can see the rating of each country they have done. And before we accept any source, we must test it, and we must verify it, and we must see that there are multiple numbers of years that they carry this survey. So we don't just take, for example, Global Insight country risk rating. We don't just take, their report for just rating Nigeria for only once. No, it must be a multiple years that they consistently do this rating, so that there's a consistency, there's a synergy, there's a accuracy in it. So we have 8 sources, for Nigeria, and other sources, for other countries. There are some of them they are similar, some of them 13, but ours, we have been applying 8 credible sources, which, like I mentioned, nobody has come to dispute their data, nobody has disputed their information. So because the whole idea is a wake-up call. The Corruption Perception Index is about waking up call from where we are not doing right thing to do the right thing. It is not an attack. It is not to undermine or to compute or to condemn or to even assess government anti-corruption work. It is important that anti-corruption agencies and government understand that the whole idea is to help us wake up where we are doing less, we should do more. Where we don't even do anything, we should begin to do something that can help make the system work for all of us. It is about, improving the system, the service delivery, and it is about ensuring that you create an environment where everyone will be able to, associate without being confronted with the corruption like we are seeing today. So this is the whole idea. It's not about antagonizing government, because if you look at UK, in this report, we rank UK very low. If you look at last year, America was ranked low, Britain was ranked low, France, Canada, all of them. None of these countries attack us or abuse us. What they did was to say, please, can we discuss where are the areas that we can improve? And that's the spirit in which I want Nigeria to take this, not to come and bully or attack. The last administration, Garba Shehu and La Mohammed, their work was just to insult, abuse, and the next minute you hear one big corruption happened. So it's contradiction.
Mr. Rafsanjani, we want to thank you so much for coming in this morning. Alwa Rafsanjani, Executive Director, Civil Society Legislative Advocacy Center, CISLAC, and Head Transparency International Nigeria. Thank you again for your report and all that you do. Do hope that this report will cause everyone to wake up. Like as you say, a wake-up call. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Just before we go, let's look at some of your messages. And this one's coming from Bumi. Bumi says, I concur with the allusion by the CBN governor that the Naira is undervalued. The major reasons for the daily devaluation is speculation, prevalent corruption, and laundered monies invading the forex market to exchange ill-gotten wealth for the dollar, which is easily moved around. That's
Dixon Eka is saying via an mail, the decision of President Tinubu to relocate the NNPC sales receipts to CBN is a good step in the right direction. The corruption in the NNPC is too much. Let the NNPC sell and let the CBN issue receipts and collect money, and in that case it will call for a collaborative effort to steal, which may not be very easy. Kudos to the president on this one.
And to the tweets now, Festus Akimbo said, our political leaders know what to do to improve our security, but they continue to duck and dive. Restructuring, state policing, and local government autonomy are the best ways to deal effectively with insecurity. The president should be in the driving seat and not the back seat in securing the lives and properties of Nigerians. Festus Akimbo.
Akin Ogbeni says, shadowy doesn't begin to describe the NNPC. An aggressive forensic auditing of its affairs over the past decade should have been the priority project of any serious-minded government determined to combat graft and to stem the looting of our common wealth. And that's the show this morning. Thank you for the privilege of being a part of your day. Have a wonderful and a progressive one and productive one. I'm Ayo Makinde.
And I'm Nel Taigbe. Enjoy the rest of your day.